Let's talk about block planes. The block plane I have is a really old one. It has 2 moving parts-ish. A lot of the newer ones will have different adjustment knobs, which are great. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is what I got. It's simple and it gets the job done. So the main parts of a block plane, you have the sole or the base, you have this adjustment knob, you have your cap or cap iron, and then below that you have your blade. Alright, before I even start to try to use this and show you guys how you'd use a block plane, I need to sharpen this blade. You sharpen it similar to how you would sharpen a chisel blade or a regular like jack plane blade. I'm going to use a flat diamond stone. You guys know my opinions on these by now. They're great. First I'm going to work the belly side, the part without a bevel. Try to flatten that a little bit more. I looked up and like this plane made by American Boy, they were made in 1938, so I don't expect this thing to be perfect. It's not going to be, but I will try to flatten this just a little bit more than it already is. And I'd say we have about 95% of this blade flat. I'm really not too worried about that corner right there. So now I'm going to work on the bevel. And we do have a small burr just at the tip. We need to knock that off. So I like to just run the blade across a piece of wood as if I'm trying to slice it. And we'll test to see how sharp it is. Oh yeah. It's catching on a nail, which means we're in very good shape. I'd say it's more important to have a very sharp block plane blade compared to like a chisel, especially because you'll generally use a block plane to cut across the grain of wood, and for that you need a very sharp blade. Another way you can test to see if a blade is sharp is to see if you can shave with it. So if you want to get some water on your arm, and don't slice yourself, push the blade. Don't slice, push. And you should be able to shave your arm just like that. And it is kind of gross. So to put the block plane back together, you'll take your blade and seat it right in this little housing, bevel side up, so the flat part is facing down, bevel sides up, and you'll set it right in there. This is the mouth of your plane, by the way, and I like to line my plane up with somewhere that is very lit so that I can see light coming through, and I'll try to make the blade as square as possible. Then I'll reach around and feel just how much blade is sticking out. You can also kind of see it, but your fingertips are so sensitive, guys, it's not even funny. And I can already tell that this is going to be too aggressive of a cut, so I'm going to pull the block plane blade out just a little bit. That's still real aggressive. You want to just barely be able to feel that blade coming out. Now I'm going to grab my cap, and if the blade moves, that's alright. It's not going to be perfect anyways. I'm going to slide my cap right on top of my blade, and then I'm going to twist this lever or this wheel, and that will clamp down on my blade. And I'll get it relatively tight. I'm not going to crank it down quite yet because we still need to adjust this. And the plane blade did not move out around too much, but we still need to do some adjusting. I'll show you how to do that next. One thing you need to adjust your plane properly is a piece of scrap wood to work with. And this is my designated piece of scrap wood that I use on all my planes. And this face right here is the straightest, so I'm going to work with that. I'm going to clamp it in my vise. And let's just take the plane to this and see what happens. I'm going to start by taking the front quarter of my plane before the blade, placing that on my wood, and let's see if we can cut. You don't want to apply a whole lot of pressure, but for now I am. And I already know that blade is way too aggressive. I can hardly push that through my workpiece. So here's what we need to do. You can grab a hammer, a small mallet, or literally anything. I'm a big proponent of grabbing anything and using that to hit my plane. So there's this little button back here. It doesn't actually move, but whenever you tap that button, that sends the blade, or not the blade, when you tap the button, that sends the plane body forward, and the blade stays in place. It's physics. Basically, if you hit this button, your blade is going to come out of the hole just a little bit. So I'm just going to give it a little tap. I'm going to feel that with my finger. I know just by feel that's still a real aggressive cut, so I'm going to tap it a couple more times. We're still aggressive. And if you find yourself just having to wail on this thing, you need to loosen up your cap. That'll make it a little bit easier to move your blade. So I think I'm at a decent cutting depth right now, but I can feel that on this side of the plane there's less blades sticking out than this side. So I'm going to take my piece of wood and I'm going to tap the plane blade just a little bit in that direction. Doesn't take a lot. That feels a little bit more even. Give it another tap. Just a little bit more. Yep, I think that's it. Let's see if we're right. We'll take it to our workpiece. So it is cutting, but I was wrong. We're still pretty aggressive. We know what to do. Yep. I went way too far. So now we need to hit the blade. So we were hitting that button, sending the blade backwards. Now to send it forwards, pretty simple. Just tap that blade. Let's see what we're looking at. Still not cutting. Give it another tap. Alright, and if you need to put that much force into this thing, you know you're way too aggressive. We know what we're doing. Alright, I'm happy with this. We're not getting long ribbons of wood, and I don't think we will with a plane like this. Generally, you don't use a block plane for planing an entire piece of wood. That's what a jack plane is for. I told you earlier this is mainly for cutting across grain or chamfering edges. So to chamfer an edge, say I wanted to chamfer this corner, just lay it on its side, scrape that corner off. So you can see I'm just taking off the edge of that corner. If you want to look at the piece of wood, you can kind of tell that it's got a chamfer on it. Nothing huge. Let's see if we can shave cross grain with this. Before I try cutting across the grain, first I'm going to chamfer the edge, because if I just go at it right now, I'm going to splinter out the back side of my wood, because it'll be peeling that wood off. So to do that, put the block plane at an angle and just shave that off. If you want to chamfer the other side as well, you can. And let's see what we're looking at. Now you heard that squeaking. I don't think that has anything to do with the blade's sharpness. That has to do with just the friction between your sole and the wood. To work with that, you can toss some oil on your sole. I'm going to go do that. Some mineral oil here. Now whenever you put mineral oil on, don't scrape your finger across that blade. You'll slice your fingertip off. If anything, go with the blade. Rag, wipe the excess oil off. Let's see what we're looking at. Right here, you can see that I got a splinter coming off. That's because I didn't chamfer this edge very well. Actually, I don't think I did it at all. That's alright, it's a scrap piece of wood anyways. Couple different ways you can hold this. This is one way. You cup it in both hands, run it across that edge. You can also hold it with one hand, put your finger on this little handle or button, scrape across it like that. Really, there's no, I don't want to say wrong way to hold it, but just be smart with it and you can do whatever you want. Just don't hurt yourself. And that's really it. There aren't a whole lot of safety concerns with a block plane. Just know that if you're working your tool too hard, the blade is probably sticking out too far, it's too aggressive of a cut, or it's just not sharp. So be cognizant of that. The more modern planes have more fancier knobs, a little bit thicker blades that make them a little bit easier to use. I don't use this tool a whole lot or very often, but whenever I do need it, it'll get the job done, or I'll just get frustrated and use sandpaper. So if you guys have any questions, let me know.